He said, "Don't embarrass us at the wedding," so I watched from the lawyer's office. They'd left the RSVP envelope on my kitchen counter like I was the help. It was addressed to Mr. and Mrs. James Darnell, even though I stopped being Mrs. Anything years ago. No stamp. Just tossed there beside the grocery list I'd written in pencil, next to a jar of peach jam I'd made for them. Homemade. Always homemade. I stood there looking at it for a long time. The handwriting was Sarah's, my daughter, curled like her 5th grade thank you notes. And right there, under attending, someone had checked, "No, I'm Mary Carson, 72. And that was the moment I knew they didn't want me there. Subscribe and tell me in the comments where you're watching from. Thanks. I didn't cry. I made a cup of tea, the water boiled loud in the kettle, and I let the sound cover the silence in the house. The mug was chipped, white with a little robin on the handle. I drank it without sugar. No one had called. No one had said, "Mom, we love you, but," or "Mom, it's complicated." I would have understood if they'd said something. I know what it's like to want clean lines in photos, smooth speeches, everyone in matching shoes. I was a mother. I made those dreams happen. Scrubbed floors before birthdays, sewed hymns at midnight, covered bruises with cardigans and casseroles. But it's a checkbox. James, my ex-husband, always knew how to make people disappear without raising his voice. It was an art, really. He'd smile and say, "Let's not make a scene." And just like that, whole pieces of me would vanish from the room. He taught them well. When I finally sat down, my hands shook a little. Not from anger. It wasn't anger. Not exactly. More like recognition. Like something that had been gently cracking for years, finally broke with a quiet click. I stared at that RSVP like it was a diagnosis, not attending. As if I'd ever truly been invited. I wasn't always this quiet. There was a time I filled every room I walked into, with song, with food, with the smell of lemon oil on freshly wiped counters. When Sarah was little, she'd trail behind me with her socks sliding on the wood floors, saying, "Mom, you hum when you're happy." I didn't notice it then. I just did it. It was a sound that belonged to a woman who believed her presence mattered. I married James when I was 21. He was already 3 years into his father's real estate firm and wore his ambition like cologne. Strong, sharp. Lingered long after he left the room. I thought that meant security. I thought marrying him would mean I'd never be alone again. But being with James was its own kind of loneliness. He didn't yell. He didn't hit. He simply rewrote the script while I was still memorizing my lines. One day, one was his partner. The next, I was in charge of appetizers and keeping quiet during meetings. He'd pat my hand in front of clients and say, "Mary's more comfortable behind the scenes." I smiled. Of course I smiled. I'd already bought the dress. Then Sarah came, and I poured everything I had into her. My daughter was born with a head of dark hair and a cry that could crack glass. I remember holding her that first night, her tiny hand curling instinctively around my finger, and thinking, this is the real beginning. Not the wedding, not the mortgage. This I raised her to notice people, to write thank you notes, to call her. Grandparents to remember who liked cream in their coffee. I taught her how to sew a button and change a tire. I clipped coupons. I packed lunches with handwritten notes that said things like, "You're braver than you think," or "The moon looks better when you share it." She used to fold them into her notebooks, pressed between algebra problems and song lyrics. I never said it out loud, but I think I believed that if I mothered perfectly, she'd never need to untoose me. I thought I could earn my permanence, but children don't see the quiet scaffolding that holds their lives together. They see the face smiling from the bleachers, not the hands washing the uniforms. They hear the voice cheering them on, not the one calling the doctor, arguing with the school, staying up past midnight, sewing dance, recital costumes from scratch because the store-bought ones were too thin for November. James was good at being seen. Sarah adored him. He'd pick her up in his shiny car, let her eat fast food, buy her expensive dresses that I'd hand wash while he took calls. She didn't see what I gave up to keep the heat on in winter, or how I'd eat toast for dinner so she could have fresh strawberries in her lunchbox. And I never told her. That was my mistake. I didn't want to be the mother who made her child feel guilty for existing, so she grew up thinking everything just appeared. That comfort was automatic. That love was ease. And James, he let her believe it. It made him look better. After the divorce, James remarried a woman 10 years younger. Blonde, polished, already childless by choice. She didn't cook, but she wore the kind of shoes that clicked loudly in restaurants and made people turn. At first I thought, good. Let him play house with someone who thinks homemade is a setting on the oven. Sarah didn't know what to do with the divorce. She was 24 and away at grad school. She said things like, "You both deserve to be happy, and I support you both." But I could tell her loyalty leaned his way. Maybe because I didn't fight for a narrative. Maybe because I was too tired to explain why I left after 31 years of keeping it together. She called less, visited even less than that. When she did come, it was with her boyfriend, Kyle, who always smelled like department store cologne and never asked a single question about me. I served roast chicken. He picked at the skin, said they were cutting carbs. Still, I told myself, this is the season of letting go. Children grow up, they forget the texture of your hands. They forget the way you used to braid their hair while humming lullabies off key. It's normal, it's nature. That's what people say, but it didn't feel natural. Felt like being slowly erased, like someone was rewriting the story of my life. But in this version, I was a minor character. Background noise. A woman who used to matter. I remember one Sunday, Sarah called to say they were getting engaged. I stood in the backyard, holding the phone with one hand and a pair of gardening shears in the other. The lavender I'd planted last spring had finally taken. I could smell it in the air, calm and proud. "I'm so happy for you," I said. I meant it. I did. But there was a long pause after I said it, and in that pause, could feel her hesitation. She asked if I'd be all right sitting with James at the wedding. I said, of course. I said it like someone who'd already been practicing invisible. But then she added, gently, kindly, that it might be best if I didn't say too much during the speeches. That James's new wife was going to do a reading. That maybe I could keep. Things simple, low-key. "Don't embarrass us, Mom." That's what I heard. That's what stayed. I nodded into the phone like she could see me. Said whatever makes you comfortable. Hung up. Stared at the shears in my hand and thought about how lavender survives drought, sun, wind. It doesn't beg to be admired. It just keeps blooming. I sat on the porch that evening and let the sun set on my face. No music, no hums. Just me and the quiet I'd earned. The box came by courier. Braun, taped at the seams with a sticker that said urgent. No return address. Just my name written neatly across the label, Mary Carson. Not Mom, not even Mother. It's just Mary. As if that name alone was enough now. I almost didn't open it. I'd come back from the grocery store with bags of apples and dry soup mix, the kind that lasts through winter. I was tired, but there was something about the way the box sat on my porch. It's like it had been waiting longer than I'd realized. I took it inside and opened it with a bread knife. Side were 3 things. A pale pink invitation tied with a silver ribbon, a contract from the wedding venue, and a typed itinerary with color-coded initials beside each event. I flipped through it slowly, page by page, till I saw the note clipped to the second envelope. Mary. "For your records." That was all it said. I sat down at the kitchen table and unfolded the invitation first. It was beautiful. Heavy cardstock. Raised lettering, Sarah and Kyle's names in gold. The ceremony would take place at the same estate where James and I had once attended a charity gala. I remembered standing in the marble hallway back then, wearing a borrowed dress and holding a clutch I couldn't close properly. I remembered thinking, maybe next year I'll belong here. Maybe next year it won't feel like pretending. I traced Sarah's name with my finger. Then I read the line beneath it, giving her away. Mr. James Darnell Lie stared at that sentence until the paper blurred. There was no mention of me. No line for mother of the bride. No space held for what I'd carried. In the itinerary. There was a section called Family Roles. I found my initials next to guest row for general seating. General seating. Kept turning the pages. It was all their menus, DJ set lists, a special shout out for James's new wife, who would be reading a quote during the vows about new chapters and unconditional love. Her name was printed in a bigger font than mine. I went to the sink and stood there a while, holding onto the counter. I didn't cry. I didn't move. I just listened to the sound of the refrigerator humming and the faraway echo of a life that didn't have room for me anymore. Later that night, I pulled out a manila envelope where I kept things: old tax returns, birth certificates, the deed to the house. I found the copy of Sarah's birth certificate, the one with my name signed at the bottom. I'd been 26 when I filled out that form. Still in my apron. Still in love with the idea that motherhood was permanent, I flipped it over, ran my hand across the ink. I'd been in the room when she came into the world. I'd held her first. I'd fed her from my own body. I'd walked the halls with her at 3 a.m. while James snored with earplugs in. I was the one who showed her how to tie her first ponytail, who held her hand after her first heartbreak, who paid off her student loans when she lost her job. And now I was general seating a week later. I found out how far it went. I was at the pharmacy picking up my blood pressure medication when the pharmacist mentioned my insurance had lapsed. I blinked. I told him there must be some mistake. My coverage was through the family plan. James had promised to keep me on until I turned 75. We'd put it in writing during the divorce. I knew that much. But when I called the company, the woman on the line told me calmly that the policy had been revised, that my name had been removed 3 months ago. I asked for a copy of the revision. She emailed it to me that same afternoon. It was signed by James and witnessed by Sarah. There it was, digital ink, time-stamped. A quiet little execution. I sat at my desk, staring at the screen, feeling the slow pull of something I couldn't name. It wasn't rage. I've known rage. It was something colder, like the part of me that believed in repair had finally gone quiet. I didn't call them. I didn't text. I didn't write a letter. I just sat there, letting the truth settle in. They'd planned for me to be small, tucked away. A shadow in the back row, quiet and grateful for the crumbs. But they forgot something. I was the one who built the table they were now eating at, every dress Sarah wore in those glossy engagement photos. I'd once hemmed the sleeves of its predecessor. Every smile she gave the camera I'd once coached through braces and broken hearts. And every financial cushion that made this wedding possible was sewn from the hours I spent keeping this family from unraveling. Now, they wanted me to disappear. I closed the laptop, got up, made myself tea, chamomile, no sugar. Then I went to the filing cabinet and pulled out the deed to my house, the real deed. The one I kept separate from the copy James's lawyer had tried to revise years ago. I unfolded it carefully, smoothed the corners, and placed it beside a folder marked contingency. They thought I'd forget, thought I'd fade, that I wouldn't notice. But I saw everything. And I remembered everything. And now I was remembering it in silence. The thing no one ever tells you about being erased is that you feel it long before it's official. You feel it in the long pauses on the phone, the unreturned texts. The way you start referring to yourself as just the mother, like it's a position you've once held, not a name that once lit up a room. But the beautiful thing about silence is that it gives you space to hear yourself again. That night, I sat in the dark at the kitchen table. No lights, just the low orange glow from the neighbor's motion sensor filtering through the blinds. I hadn't turned on a lamp since sunset. I didn't need to. Wasn't trying to see anything new. Was trying to remember what I already knew. I opened a small notebook I'd kept over the years. Nothing special. It's just a plain leather cover and some old receipts tucked between the pages. It used to sit on the shelf above the washer, a place no one ever looked. Inside were phone numbers, lockbox combinations, emergency contacts from when Sarah was in middle school. But further in, I'd started keeping more than that. Passwords, loan payoff records, dates of conversations that didn't feel right, copies of letters I never sent. When I first started keeping it, I wasn't sure why. Maybe part of me knew. Maybe part of me understood that one day I'd need to prove I existed. I flipped to the back, wrote down today's date, then wrote one line. Removed from insurance. Witnessed by daughter. No notice given. And just like that, I felt something settle in my chest. Not anger, not even grief, just clarity. A slow return to my own name. I poured myself a glass of water and sat with the deed again. I still owned the house. Full title. Paid off 7 years ago quietly on my own after the divorce. James had tried to claim it in the settlement, said it was part of our shared assets. But he forgot the down payment came from my inheritance. My mother's ring sold during the 2008 crash. He forgot I kept the receipts. He forgot I had a spine under all those thank you notes. The house was mine, and now it would fund my exit. I spent the next 3 days quietly pulling threads. I closed a joint account Sarah had never known she was co-signed on. It wasn't much. A rainy day fund I'd kept open from when she was in college. It's just enough for a plane ticket, a few nights in a clean motel, and a deposit on a mailbox in another name. I forwarded everything to a new address. Something bland. Appeal Box 3. Town's over. Just enough distance to breathe. I went through my kitchen drawers and sorted what I'd take. A handful of photos. The wedding ring I hadn't worn in 12 years. It's my mother's old colander with the handle missing, more valuable to me than one. All the crystal stemware Sarah had picked out for her registry. I didn't pack like someone escaping. I packed like someone closing up a chapter. Slow, careful, full of presents in the mornings. I'd walk the neighborhood as usual. Said hello to Marcy next door, who always wore house slippers to the mailbox. I didn't say anything. Not yet. Some goodbyes are better left behind the eyes than I called the lawyer. Not the one James used. Not the firm that handled our divorce. Someone new. Younger, sharper. Recommended by a woman I met at the library's senior legal aid desk. A place I'd started going more often, not because I needed help, but because it reminded me that knowledge was still free if you knew where to look. We spoke for 26 minutes. I gave her every document, every date, every copy. I sent the email trail, the insurance change, even the scanned itinerary with my name left off. She didn't say much, just listened. When I finished, she said softly, "You've done all the work. Already, you just need someone to witness it now." That stayed with me. You just need someone to witness it now. I'd been witnessing myself all along. I gave her power of attorney for certain documents. Not because I was fragile, but because I was ready. I didn't want to chase anyone down anymore. I wanted everything filed, accounted for. Final that afternoon, I stood in my bedroom and looked at the walls. The soft yellow paint Sarah had picked out when she was 16 was still there. She'd wanted it to feel like summer year-round. I remember we painted it together. She'd left handprints above the closet door. I'd left them there even after she moved out. Now I took a photo of that wall, not to keep, just to remember it once existed. Then I closed the bedroom door and moved on. By Thursday, I had a one-way bus ticket, southbound. Nothing dramatic, just far enough to be somewhere they wouldn't think to look. Somewhere warmer. I'd found a month-to-month rental in a town with a church, a post office, and a laundromat that offered coffee on Sundays. That's all I needed. I left the keys on the counter, labeled each drawer with what was inside. Not because I expected gratitude, but because I am who I am. I clean up, I make things easier. Even when no one thanks me, I left one thing behind. On purpose, a copy of the guest list. I highlighted my name 4th row. General seating, and tucked it inside the silver ribbon. Invitation. Then I placed it gently on the hall table. Let them find it. Let them wonder. Let them see the seat they assigned me. and realized too late that I never sat in it. I left just after dawn. No sunrise. Just a cold sky and the shape of everything I no longer needed. The house was still. I walked through it barefoot, the way I used to when Sarah was a baby, tiptoeing so she wouldn't wake. I paused by the fridge. There was a magnet from the aquarium we visited when she was 9, still holding up a faded drawing of a turtle wearing a tiara. She said the turtle was me, strong and slow and royal. I remember laughing. I remember loving that she saw me like that. I left the drawing where it was, outside. The air smelled like rain, even though it hadn't rained. I carried only one bag, navy blue, fraying at the zipper. Inside, 2 changes of clothes, my notebook, the deed, and a photo of me holding Sarah the day she came home from the hospital. I was wearing a yellow cardigan. She was wrapped in a blanket my mother had knit. We both looked stunned. The bus stop was 6 blocks away. I walked it slowly. I didn't look back. I didn't need to. I'd already said goodbye, inch by inch, all week. The goodbyes that matter don't come with words. They come with decisions. I didn't tell anyone where I was going. Not the neighbors. Not the bank. Not even the lawyer. It's just a forwarding address and a notarized letter that said, "Do not disclose without written consent." That was all. I arrived in the new town by early evening. A place small enough that the motel clerk handed me my key without asking for ID. She just looked at me, nodded, and said, "Room 6 is quiet. You'll like it." She was right. Room 6 had green curtains and a lamp with no shade, but it was clean. The sheets smelled like bleach and eucalyptus. I set my bag down and sat on the edge of the bed. It creaked. Everything honest does. I didn't cry. I didn't celebrate. I just sat there, breathing. It's a woman alone in a room with 4 walls and no one expecting her. I stayed like that for a long time. That night, I wrote in the notebook again. A new page. A new heading. Day 1, Mary Carson. Free, it felt strange. Calling myself free. Freedom isn't loud like people think. It's quiet. It's a room where no one interrupts you. It's your own name, spoken gently, with no expectations. Stitched to it, the next day, I walked to the post office and picked up my new box key. The woman behind the counter looked at my license, looked back at me, then smiled. "Starting fresh?" she asked. I nodded. She slid the key toward me like it meant something. It did. I opened the box right then, even though I knew it would be empty. I just wanted to see it. Just wanted to know I had a place to be reached that wasn't filtered through anyone else's permission. I rented a bicycle from a man named Henry who had a little shop off Main Street. He adjusted the seat without asking, said, "You've got good posture for a rider. Funny what people notice when they're not trying to change you." I rode past the grocery store, the library, a church with blue trim, and finally the laundromat, the one with the coffee sign out front. Side, a girl about 20 was folding sheets and humming to herself. She looked up, smiled once, and went back to her folding. No questions. No expectations. Just a quiet hum in a clean place. I liked that. I began sending official letters to the bank, to the pension office, to the insurance company, all with the same line. "Please update your records. Mary Carson has relocated. She will handle her affairs directly from now on. No elaboration. No return address they'd recognize." I also wrote to my lawyer. I told her I would not be attending the wedding. I asked her to file a motion confirming the terms of my divorce were violated when my insurance was removed without consent. I gave her the exact page and clause. I attached the birth certificate again, not because I had to, but because I wanted it seen. By the 3rd day, I felt something settle. Not peace yet, but space. Like I could finally stretch out inside myself without apology. I bought a small radio from a thrift store and tuned it to the oldies. Not the songs Sarah liked, not the loud ones James played in the car. It's the ones I used to listen to in college before I ever married, before I had a name that belonged to anyone but me. Sometimes I'd hum along. Sometimes I'd just listen. There was one afternoon around sunset. I sat outside the motel with my tea and watched two birds building a nest in the eaves. They flew back and forth with string, straw, feathers, working quietly. Not rushing, not making a show of it. It's doing what needed to be done. And I thought, maybe that's what this is? It's a second nest. A soft place. Made by my own hands. I didn't miss the house. I didn't miss the silence in it. I didn't miss the version of myself who waited to be acknowledged. I missed the idea of a daughter. But not the one who signed her name on the line. That cut me loose. I missed the girl who called me Turtle Queen and cried when. I left her at summer camp, but I also knew that girl was long gone. I'd left the door open for years. Now I've closed it. Gently, fully. And it stayed closed. The first message came 2 weeks later. A voicemail. Hi, Mom. Just checking in. We're finalizing the table layout, and I wanted to, well, we just need to confirm the RSVP. Can you call me? Back when you get this, no mention of the insurance. No apology. Not even a question about where I'd gone. Just a half-chirped request wrapped in bridal logic. RSVP, as if I were still expected to perform. On cue, as if I hadn't folded myself. Away from their story on purpose. I didn't return the call. 3 days later, another message. This time from Jacob, Sarah's fiancé Mary. We're a little concerned. Haven't heard from you? Sarah's been trying to reach out. We hope everything's okay. This is about the insurance thing. It was just a misunderstanding. These things happen. Let's not make it a whole thing. There it was. That little tone. Let's not make it a whole thing. It had taken me most of my adult life to understand how that tone worked. The tidy little lid they kept trying to snap over my mouth. It was the same tone James used when I found out he'd emptied our savings once. Years ago for a side investment he never disclosed. The same tone Sarah used when she didn't show up for my surgery follow-up because she said it wasn't serious and she had meetings. That tone had always been more dangerous than yelling. It was the sound of erasure disguised as reason. I didn't answer. I saved the messages, then wrote in my notebook. June 4th. Voicemail from Jacob. No apology. Tone managerial. I began cataloging everything, not out of pettiness, but for memory. For clarity, I wanted the facts to stand firm and quiet, not swept away by time or tears. The next wave came on social media. Of course it did. A post from Sarah's account, bright, filtered, captioned, feeling grateful for our village as we plan this next chapter. Can't wait to celebrate with everyone we love. The photo showed her, surrounded by women, smiling, blush dresses, champagne. My face obviously absent. No tag, no mention, but in the comments I noticed a few dots of unease. Where's your mom? Didn't your mom help with the cake vendor? Tell Mary we say hi. I read each comment like a needle through fabric, small punctures in her narrative. Gentle reminders that some people still remembered I existed. A week after that, my lawyer forwarded me a message from their side. It wasn't threatening, just probing. We'd like to clarify the language in the deed transfer, as it seems there. Maybe changes to property access that weren't communicated with the family. That was their phrase. Weren't communicated with the family. Not violated, not disputed. Just not communicated. As if I'd forgotten to send a note about something as trivial as a front. Lawn no longer being theirs. I told my lawyer to respond. Plainly, all decisions fall within the legal owner's rights. All communications have been archived. No response necessary unless initiated through counsel. And then I went back to my tea. The panic deepened after that. Another voicemail? Sarah. Again, her voice thinner this time. Mom, if this is about the seating thing, I didn't mean it how you're taking it. It's just that. Look, Jacob's family paid for the majority of the reception, and it was easier to put your name under general guests. It doesn't mean anything, you know that, right? No, it meant exactly what it meant. It meant I was decoration. Filler, a mother in name only. But that wasn't the part that hollowed me out. It was how certain she sounded that I should understand. that I should accept it, forgive it, and show up anyway, smiling, clothed in the kind of dignity that makes everyone else feel better. That was always the part they counted on. Not anymore. I walked to the post office that day and sent back the invitation. I didn't add a note. I didn't scratch anything out. I just sealed the reply card in the return envelope and checked the box. Regretfully declines. The girl behind the counter asked if I wanted a receipt. Said no. I didn't need proof. I'd said no. That evening, I sat in the motel courtyard again. The birds had finished their nest. I could see tufts of feather moving inside. Life going on. No performance. No spectacle. Just enough. The next day, I found a letter slipped under my door. Handwritten, no return address. It was Sarah, Mom. I'm sorry if things got confusing. I didn't mean for you to feel excluded. It's just been a lot happening. I know you've always been private and sensitive about family stuff, and I probably didn't handle it the best way. I hope you'll still come. It wouldn't be the same without you. There were no details about what she did, no ownership. Just vague shapes of concern curved to avoid sharpness. Like she was trying to say, oops, instead of I knew and did it anyway. I didn't write back. Instead, opened my notebook again. June 12th. Letter from Sarah. Avoidant tone. No direct accountability. Maintains emotional leverage. Declined to engage. That night, I sat on the bed, the notebook beside me, and read every page from the beginning. All of it. The insurance removal. The wedding list. The escape. The new mailbox. The first time I said free and meant it, and I realized something. They weren't unraveling because I disappeared. They were unraveling because I stopped giving them a mirror to admire themselves in. I had removed my reflection, and now they didn't know where to look. It started with the laundromat, same place, same girl folding towels and humming softly. Her name was Lena. I learned that when she handed me a cup of coffee unasked, just something she did for the regulars. I suppose I'd become one. You like cinnamon? She asked. I said yes, and she smiled like she already knew. After that, it became a small ritual. Thursdays, just after 9. I'd sit at the little table by the vending machine while my clothes turned slow circles behind glass, and she'd bring me coffee with cinnamon, always in the paper cup with the gold rim. She said it was the fancy kind. It's for people who'd earned it. I never told her where I came from. She never asked. That's what I liked most. I started filling the notebook with new things. Not just the cold documentation of loss, but warm. Simple entries. July 3rd. Sunlight came through the curtain this morning and landed right on my toes. Felt like someone touched me with kindness. July 7th. A child waved at me from a grocery cart. Just waved and kept waving like he knew me from somewhere good. July 10th. The smell of lavender detergent reminded me of my mother's bathrobe. Safe. Heavy. Hold on, I picked up a used paperback from the free shelf at the library. A gardening book with soft illustrations and handwritten notes in the margins. I liked that someone had loved it before me. Pages folded. Names of flowers circled like prayers. I didn't have a garden, but I bought a basil plant from a farmer's stand and placed it on the windowsill, tilted toward the light like it had a purpose. That was enough. Some days I walked to the river. There was a bend in the path where the water slowed and ducks gathered like a congregation. I brought breadcrumbs once, and they came to me without hesitation. I sat on the bench and let them surround me, pecking gently at my offering. No one asked what I was doing. No one corrected the way I fed them. No one tried to explain why I was alone. There was a woman named Esther who ran the motel's front desk when the younger girl wasn't working. Esther was in her 60s, maybe early 70s, wore bright scarves and cardigans with too many buttons. She'd tap the counter twice whenever I passed. You need anything? She'd ask like a friend who knew better than to pry. I told her once that I liked the room to smell like citrus. And the next day there was a bottle of lemon spray on my nightstand. She didn't say a word about it, just left it there. That's how kindness works, I think. Quiet, precise. Without conditions, the radio kept me company in the evenings. Old jazz, mostly. Billie Holiday on low volume while I made toast and sliced fruit onto a blue ceramic plate I'd bought from a flea market for $2. I ate slowly and made the moment last. I'd never done that before. So much of my old life had been rushing, making things, fixing things, giving things. Always on time, always enough. Always last on my own list. Now there was no list. Just the rhythm of days shaped by small choices. The kind that didn't ask permission. I began writing letters, not to send, just to write. To people I no longer spoke to my younger self. To Sarah, once or twice. I didn't sign them. I didn't reread them. I folded each one and placed it into a box I kept at the back of the closet. My own private archive of things I needed to say once without response. One Sunday, Lena invited me to her house for lunch. I hesitated. She said, "I make good lentil soup. It'll be worth it." Her apartment was small, clean, and filled with light. She had plants hanging from every hook and a chipped record player that played old soul music. She told me about her mother who used to sing while she cooked, about how she moved here because the city never let her breathe. I nodded. I understood that too well. She asked what I used to do. I said I was a mother. Then I paused and added, "And now I'm learning how to be just a person again." She didn't blink. "That's the hardest job anyway," she said. "Just being a person." After that, we had lunch once a week. Always soup, always music. Never too many questions. Sometimes she'd hand me a poem she wrote and I'd read it aloud. She said she liked my voice. Said it sounded like someone who knew how to carry heavy things without dropping them. It was the kindest thing anyone had said to me in years. I didn't tell her about the wedding. I didn't tell her about the deed or the insurance, or the list that put me with general guests. But one day, while we shelled peas on her porch, she said something that made me still. Some people only know how to love you when you stay small. The second you stretch, they call it betrayal. I looked at her. She just smiled, as if she hadn't said anything profound at all. That night, I wrote one last entry in the notebook before starting a new one. August 4th, I did not disappear. I unfolded. I was coming back from the river when I saw her. She was sitting on the motel bench near the front office, legs crossed too tightly, hands in her lap like she didn't know what to do with them. Same posture she used to have when she got caught lying as a teenager when I'd find makeup in her backpack after she'd sworn she didn't wear any. That same stubborn mouth, that same waiting for mercy look. It startled me. Not because she was there, but because I'd forgotten how much of her I used to carry in my body. Her walk, her sighs, her silences. For years, I'd adjusted my days around her moods without ever noticing. She stood up when she saw me. I didn't stop walking, just kept going, toward my room, slowly, letting her follow if she chose. She did, Mom. Wait. I unlocked the door and stepped inside. I didn't invite her in, but I didn't shut it either. She hovered in the doorway, looking around like the room had betrayed her. Like she was trying to make sense of the bedspread, the notebook on the desk, the half-full mug by the window. "This is where you've been?" she asked, quiet. I didn't answer. She stepped in anyway, sat on the edge of the chair by the dresser, like she was afraid to leave a mark. Her voice was thinner than I remembered, smaller. "I didn't know how to reach you," she said. We looked. We called. "You removed me from the insurance." I said it without anger, just a statement, like saying it was raining. A truth with no weather in my voice. She looked down at her hands. That wasn't what I meant to happen, but it was what happened. She tried to cry, but the tears didn't come easy. She was always better at performative grief than real sorrow. "I messed up," she said. "I didn't mean to cut you out of things. The wedding, it just got complicated. You can be well. You shut down sometimes, Mom. You make it hard to include you." I watched her say it. Watched the careful reordering of guilt. It was the same language they'd always used. A kind of subtle magic trick that turned their knife into my wound, and then blamed me for bleeding too slowly. You put me in general seating. I said it flat. Soft. No edge. Her mouth opened, closed. She had no defense, and you told me not to embarrass. You, I added, as if I was some old furniture too scuffed for display. That seemed to shake her. I didn't mean it like that. You know I didn't. Jacob's parents, they have expectations. And you don't always. Sometimes you make comments. Or my silence stopped her. That was all I had to do now. Just stop giving her anything to push against. She sat back in the chair, looked around again, at the quiet, the smallness, the peace I'd made. This isn't like you, she said, and that more than anything told me how little she knew me. I didn't respond. I walked to the nightstand and picked up the envelope I'd prepared days ago. I didn't know if she'd come. I hadn't expected her to. But some part of me needed to be ready. I handed it to her. What is this? Your wedding gift. She looked surprised, suspicious even. She opened it slowly, like it might bite that inside was a copy of a document. The notarized relinquishment of the last account we held jointly. An old savings bond in her name. I'd cashed. It converted it into a cashier's check. The check was paperclipped to the back, $10,000. It wasn't much, but it was all that was left of the version of me who used to think I could buy her love in birthdays and deposits and bridal. Shower deposits. I watched her eyes move down the page. I don't understand. You don't have to, I said. Just know it's the last thing I'll give you. After this, there's nothing left to return. No favors, no apologies. No access. You're cutting me off? No, I already did. She stood suddenly. Her voice broke a little. I'm trying, Mom. I came. All the way here. I'm showing up. Does that count for anything? Does. She softened. It counts as the first honest thing you've done. She didn't like that. Her face stiffened again. Kay, like a mask snapping into place. You're being cruel. No, I'm being done. We stood there, two women with the same chin, the same eyes, the same deep ache of disappointment. But only one of us had learned how to carry it without spilling it onto the people who didn't ask for it. She looked around one more time, at the basil plant on the sill, at the single suitcase by the door, at the quiet that didn't bend toward her mood. She left without saying goodbye. The door closed gently, not a slam, just a sound like the last page of a chapter turning. I waited 5 minutes, then picked up my notebook. August 10th, she came. She left. She did not say the word sorry. I did not need her to dot outside. The sun had started shifting west. The ducks would be gathering. I stood, stretched, and reached for my sweater. I had somewhere to be. And for once, it wasn't her. The sun came in low that morning, pale gold, almost white. It slid across the wall like someone brushing their hand over my shoulder. I'd never been one for mornings before. Always rushed. It's always second to someone else's alarm clock, someone else's needs. Now I gotta wake up slow. I made tea, not coffee. Tea felt gentler somehow. I used the little blue cup Lena gave me, the one with the faint crack down the side. She said it looked like something that had survived a fall and kept holding warmth anyway. I took it out to the bench near the motel's side lot. No one ever sat there. The view wasn't much. A chain-link fence and a stubborn little weed, pushing through the gravel. But I liked it. I liked that something grew there anyway. I thought about all the places I'd been small, the rooms I tiptoed through, the way I used to measure the volume of my joy, how even my laughter had been on a leash. I thought about birthday cakes with everyone else's favorite flavor, gifts I paid for with my own money so no one else had to. I thought about Sarah, and how I'd taught her to have everything, except patience for me. She hasn't called. Not since she left my room with that envelope in her purse and my silence in her ears. I don't expect she will. I don't know if she hated me for it, or if she cried in the car, or if she's already told the story in a dozen different ways to make herself the wounded one. That doesn't matter anymore. People don't like when the person they underestimated finally stops asking to be seen. It throws off their story. I spent a long time in their story. I was the grateful mother, the background figure, the wallet, the babysitter, the fixer, the one who got called last but arrived first. I gave my name to their emergencies. I gave my signature to their loans. I gave my weekends, my jewelry, my silence, and they still asked me not to embarrass them. That sentence used to echo in my bones. Not anymore. I finished my tea and went back inside. I opened the drawer and pulled out a small box. Inside were three things: a photograph of me holding Sarah when she was 5, a set of house keys I hadn't used in over a year, and the name card from the wedding, the one they printed for my seat at the general table. It had smudged at the corners. I'd held it in my hand for hours the night they left me out. I remember turning it over and over, trying to figure out if it was a mistake, if maybe I'd read it wrong. There was some other Mary Carson they were referring to, but it had been me, always me, the person they pushed to the side with a smile. I took the box and walked to the little grill out behind the motel. No one was there. The air was still. I placed the photo in first, then the keys, then the name card. I struck the match. It caught fast. The edges curled, blackened, turned to smoke and flake. I watched it quietly, not with anger, but with something older. Something quieter. Grief, maybe, but not fresh grief. This was the kind that had settled, calcified, the kind you learn to carry without resentment. Because to carry it at all is already a kind of freedom. When it was done, I swept the ashes into a jar. A simple mason jar I'd cleaned that morning. I didn't keep. The ashes. That's not what this was. I carried them down to the river. It was warm out. I didn't bring a coat. The path curved to the same bench I always sat on. The one where the ducks waited and the sun touched the water just right around 3 in. The afternoon, I opened the jar and poured the ashes into my palm. Let the wind take them piece by piece. They didn't scatter all at once. They lifted slowly. Like even they didn't quite believe they were allowed to go, but they went. I stayed. They're long after. Watching the light move across the surface of the water, listening to the world without needing to respond to it. And then, for the first time, I said my name aloud. Mary Carson. Not mom, not ma, not mother of the bride. Not general guest, not policy. Holder. Just Mary. It felt clean. Unloaded, like the beginning of something instead of the end. I walked back to the motel with empty hands and a full chest. Esther nodded at me from the front office, but she didn't say anything. She didn't have to dot in my room. I opened the new notebook. It's the one with the soft cover and the lavender print. I wrote one sentence. This time, I decide who gets to call me anything else, and then I closed the book.